Job search
Oh,
and
yeah.
graduate school
Yeah,
applications.
this is career coach 101 here. This is like you were in it.
So that's important
Yeah.
to know that you can use those skills and not only use those, but a tip is that you can put that on your resume.
So having that connection to yourself and to your family and your relationships helps make you want to help other people.
Absolutely.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Career View Mirror. I'm your host, Joyel Crawford, and today we have a very special guest, Mr. Ernest Owens. He is an award-winning journalist and CEO of Ernest Media Empire. He's also the editor-at-large at Philadelphia Magazine. He just completed his studies at USC Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism with a master's in communication management. Congratulations.
Thank you.
He just became the youngest president of the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists. And last but not least, Ernest just launched a brand new podcast called Earnestly Speaking with Ernest Owens, with new episodes that are launching and dropping every week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, and any other platform known in the world. And as he says, it's live, it's lit, and it's everywhere. Welcome,
Yes.
Ms. Owens. Thank you
Thank you.
so much. So you have so many different facets of your career. How would you specifically describe your career?
Wow. That's a very good question. I would describe my career as intersectional, independent, and advocacy driven. I think that those are the most important principles of my business. It seeks to enlighten people, inform people, and empower people. But at the same time, it's really rooted in independence. As an entrepreneur and as someone who owns my work and have that kind of creative freedom, it's very important to me that I was able to, own my voice and be able to tell the stories that I care about, and also, shape my career the way I want it to. And also, the most important component is that it's intersectional. It's very important to me to, kind of embrace all of the different aspects of my identity and the nuances that they are. I walk into all of my truths as a millennial, as a Black person, as a queer person, and as someone who has had various experiences that shapes my perspective. So those are the three major aspects that really shaped my career.
That's fantastic. Now, I know that you got your millennial, so you've got so many different accomplishments. I mean, can you share how you got started in your career? What really catalyzed you into moving into journalism and owning your own business and your voice?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I, really did early in my career 10 years ago when I first started to show an interest in media specifically and in journalism was that I really leaned into the things that made me feel good. I think too often, what drives us to pursue a career or an interest is looking at the things that, oh, this makes more money, or this is what my parents want me to do, or this is what, seems to be right. But we never really pay attention to what makes us feel good. And so when I came to the University of Pennsylvania, which was my alma mater for undergrad, I initially set off to, do politics. I thought I was going to be a lawyer and then, run for office because, in 2010, we had elected our first Black president, which was Barack Obama. And the energy for a lot of Black men like myself that were young and was very active in high school, I was the class president and valedictorian. So a lot of those same aspirations of, being an overachiever, shooting for the stars, to me, I thought that was a presidency of some sort. And so when I went to college, I began to quickly fall in love with doing radio on campus and then really started just like writing. And I was like, you know what, this is what's calling me. This is what's driving me. I like the feeling I get when people read my articles. I like the conversations that people have when I enter these various media platforms. And that was what I ran with. I said, how do I turn this into a career? How do I lean into this? And in college, I really got the opportunity to realize that this was journalism, that this was something that resonated with me more than anything else. And so that is how it started. I started to say, how do I invest in this? I built my own website. I had a really great friend that helped me, learn how to code. I did a lot of internships across the media platforms and publications. I did a TV internship, a magazine internship. I freelanced while I was in college, and I just really fell in love with it. And I think really it was just leaning into what made me personally feel good and the magic that comes from it. The things that money can't buy. Like nothing compares to when an editor tells me my article is up online, or I see people share something I've written or something I've done, or people give a 5-star rating to my podcast, or any of those things. Those are the moments that really make me happy, and it has really nothing to do with titles and positions, which have come over the years. But in spite of all of that, it's the magic that comes from the impact of the work and seeing it resonate with people. That's irreplaceable. And that's why I do what I do.
I appreciate you sharing your response about that, because a lot of times people think of that as passion or purpose, but it really what's filling your cup and doing what makes you feel good, not because of the pressures of your parents. And you went
Yeah.
to a Ivy League school. It's not, something
Yeah.
to stick at, So the fact that you kind of pushed past some of the pressure of other people's thoughts and followed your own essence and what really sparked that passion for you really speaks a lot, because a lot of times people get boxed into other people's conventions. So, and that really speaks
Absolutely.
volumes. So do you have any tips on how to get into the career path? I mean, I know that you said you followed what made you feel good.
Yeah.
Any other tips for folks that are interested in pursuing a career in journalism?
Well, I think for starters, you really should focus. It's funny, every time I'm asked this question over the years, it's changed. But I'm
Mhm.
also looking at where we are now, and then it changed because of this, the current state we're in, right? We're in a pandemic. We're in a time where, industry is evolving. One of the most important things that I would encourage incoming people who are interested in journalism is to really learn how to write.
Mhm.
I don't care what type of job in media you do, whether you do broadcast or whether you are doing social media, if you are doing, the traditional, reporting and writing,
Mhm.
everyone needs to know how to write, because the art of writing isn't just about what is on paper. It's about how to think critically. It's about how to organize ideas and thoughts. And no matter what you do in this business, the best people who achieve in this type of field based on technique are those who know how to synthesize, organize, and process. And that was something that I am very fortunate that I learned very early in the business was, how to write really well, but also how to learn how to pitch, how to be concise. And I've been able to take those skills even in organizing the show topics for my podcast, even when I make appearances on national TV outlets. Those skills that you learn from writing is applicable to all of those aspects. So I really would encourage anyone who's interested in journalism to really learn how to write, and not just write in the sense of wordplay and
Mhm.
that, but the actual idea formulation and organization, because those skills can be applicable to any aspect of media. I would also add that you can always be practicing your craft. I think too often people wait for a job or a position or some type of official title
Mhm.
to get work in. Listen, before I even became uh, this editor at large of Philadelphia Magazine and had this, great success, I was someone who was always writing. I started my website as a blogger site. It was a company called Blogger. I don't even know if they exist anymore, but I had created like a
Yeah, they
small blogger site. Yeah, I created a blogger site. It wasn't fancy like my new website is.
Mhm.
It wasn't an ernestowens.com yet. It was like 10 years ago I started it. And I just would write about issues that mattered to me and what I was passionate about. And the funny thing was that when I applied to be a columnist for the Daily Pennsylvanian, which was my college's paper, I didn't have the traditional writing experience, but they wanted clippings. They wanted to see my writing. And
Yep.
so I used those um, pieces that I wrote that was just on my blog site, and they looked at it and said, wow, your thought process, the quality of your writing, your ideas is what attracted them. And I got the position. And then that opened doors for me to have more legitimate paid opportunities down the road. But you got to start from somewhere. And too
Yes.
often, the writers that I'm meeting and the journalists I'm meeting, even those who do film or whatever, they're too often waiting for a cosign or waiting for a company to validate their talent. You have to do that work for yourself first. And sometimes it's great to do it that way because you iron out the kinks.
Yeah.
Before I made a TV show, I had did my own YouTube programs with my friend in the camera and produced many vinaigrettes and snippets
Mhm.
that, was just for me to be able to see how I look and to understand my talking patterns and everything like that. It never is too late. So I would tell people to make that investment in yourself first.
Mhm.
And then lastly, I would just say that in this business, be original and be intentional. Be original and be
Mhm.
intentional.
Mhm.
I think too often people write stories or produce content that they don't even know why they're doing it. There's like no rhyme or reason behind why they felt like they need to do what they did. And so one of the things that's important to me is that when I write a piece or a podcast or do a podcast episode or make a television appearance, when my followers or my friends ask me, hey, what made you decide to write this?
Mhm.
I should already have that answer. It should easily come from the top. I have thought it and processed it. And I think in this business, the worst thing you can hear a journalist say is, I don't know.
Oh,
Not I don't know to an editor before they report on the story, but when asked why did they produce it? Or why did this come out? Or why did they make that decision? And their answer is, I don't know. That is the one of the worst responses you can ever give in this business because everything should have a focus, a premise, a purpose. We can all disagree on why and what, but we should always have a what and a why.
always have to wonder why. Always. And give the
Yep,
why behind the what.
that's right.
I
That's
always
right.
like to say that. I mean, you talked about intersectionalism and how important it is. Have you experienced any, and this could be a whole nother episode, but have you experienced any challenges in your career and how did you overcome those?
Absolutely. I mean,
I know.
I'm black, I'm gay, I'm a millennial in America.
Yes.
So definitely, I mean, there has. But I think one of the patterns that I've noticed is having people use my identities as a barrier to entry rather than an asset to entry. And so I have had to do a lot of decolonizing and reshifting of how I see myself in this industry because so often I was being belabored with so many stereotypes and tropes and negativity about what I could do. And
Mhm.
I've really succeeded a lot of those things on so many different levels. Some of them was like, people said, oh, uh, people don't want a black voice, or, you can't talk too much about race if you want to succeed. But when I look at the two pieces I got published in less than a year for the New York Times, they were about race.
Yep.
When I look at people who said, you really don't need to talk of, talking about LGBTQ issues and stuff, there's no niche for that. You're not going to be able to break through. Well, at Philadelphia Magazine 5 years ago, I started as the LGBTQ editor. And because of the strong reporting I did on LGBTQ issues that became citywide issues, that led to me getting several promotions that now has made me the first Black editor at large for Philadelphia Magazine in their 113-year history. So when
Awesome.
I have been hit with these types of identities, for example, the choice to be independent and work for myself through my business, Ernest Media Empire LLC, which I get media contracts with various publications. People said to me, "You're not going to be able to get that same success unless you work full time for a major media company. Well, I got on the Forbes 30 under 30 list. I got to interview Oprah. I have been able to do several speaking engagements, make national television appearances, have won many national awards for my work. And all of that has been done as a professional freelancer under my LLC and working independently. I
Amazing.
work with companies, but I don't work for them. But again, I heard so many people project their views
Yeah.
about what success was onto me. And I had to trust myself, but also look at what was happening. And what I tell people is that, people say trust the process, right? But what I want to emphasize on that is that you have to look at what's working in your life and keep running with that.
Yeah.
So far in my career, I hadn't seen the failures that people were trying to project about the decisions I was making. And every time I had a moment based on what I believed to be what was right for me, people would try to give me that piece of advice or, oh, now that you've gotten here, here's what you got to do to switch up. But it's the consistency that has been really there. It's the consistency for me. It's been the consistency to keep going in the direction I've been that's continued to yield the results. And too often, if you feel like you're not seeing those successes or
Mhm.
seeing advancement in the ways that you want, maybe you should reevaluate. But if you are seeing progress and growth, why switch up just because of whoever said some certain things, especially when those individuals often aren't investing or taking the time to understand what your version of success looks like.
Mhm.
And that's what I think was really important. Are you trying to make money? Are you trying to make impact? Are you trying to do both? Are
Mhm.
you trying to do it on your own terms? Or are you trying to do it in a fast way through someone else? These are all of the different variables that people don't evaluate when they're getting advice. As a journalist, we're told to synthesize and research information. I do that with advice as well. I
Mm.
look at who the source is, I look at the context to which they're giving me this information, and I take the time to really look at what it is. Sometimes you can eat the meat and spit out the bones. Sometimes there's some meat there or some protein there,
Mhm.
and you might have to say, you know what, this is a good gem, but the rest of this is cubic zirconia. And so I've been in situations where I've gotten some diamonds, but I've also gotten some cubic zirconias in the conversation. For example, someone told me that I should start thinking about ways to monetize the work and output I put in, but at which I thought there was value to that.
Mhm.
But then I also was told at the same time that I would need to hire a PR person that could do all of that work. And I thought to myself, well, as someone who's in media and communications, I have a master's in communication management.
Yes.
I know how to
I
run
do this.
my own business, and I'm grateful that I understand that. So that's why it's been successful. It's been clean. The rollouts have been great because behind the doors is not just a journalist, but someone who understands communications. So I valued the monetization part, but I didn't need the PR part. And so sometimes that's what you have to do when you're getting advice from people is just look at what's relevant and applicable to what your needs are.
Mhm.
And then what are some things you just say, you know what, that'd be good for someone else, but that's not necessarily for me.
Not for me. I say this all the time. I say feedback is a gift. You can leave it, you can take it, or you can regift it,
That's right.
or you can
Because
throw
some
it
people need
away.
PR. Some people need PR. And I've
Exactly.
been there giving folks recommendations to who to go to because
Mhm.
they don't have anywhere to start. I'm in a different position. And I think that sometimes you have to recognize that what some people consider hard might not be hard for you. What some people might consider um, simple might be different for you.
Yeah.
I personally know that I don't really like to work in a newsroom. I hear so many stories of my colleagues in the field that deal with the microaggressions around their gender, their race, their sexual orientation. And it's already a lot of work to just be a journalist in this day
Right.
and age. Why would I want to compile even that much additional stress there? And to be very clear, as someone who again recognizes privilege and position, I'm in a situation where I live with my fiance. who's also gainfully employed. I am in good health. I don't have any pre-existing conditions. So I don't necessarily need to rely on the type of healthcare and packages and benefits that some of my other friends in the field rely on. So
Right.
there is some nuance there.
Mhm.
But what I've tried to tell those who are in situations where they can make that leap, you know, they should. They should if they can, and we should also continue, even as people who are free, right, independent,
Right.
we should still be working to transform these institutions and make them productive places for Black journalists and for all people, to be honest. Um, in my work as the president of the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists, a lot of my work is dealing with newsrooms,
Yes.
dealing with the working conditions of Black journalists and media professionals in these spaces. Now, while I don't personally have a lot of those HR problems because HR is myself, and I just sometimes say, okay, Ernest, get back to work. I don't have, that doesn't mean that I lose sight that there's so many of our people
Yeah.
that are still having to, work and have to deal with those type of issues. And so a lot of my work is working on work conditions, pay equity, and providing and making newsrooms be more accountable to the communities that they're serving.
Absolutely. You've got to reflect what you're projecting out there, and we need to reflect the communities we're serving. Indeed. And yeah, you don't have to. I'm an HR professional with 20 plus years, and I'm coaching journalists of color right now. And it's the same thing. I don't need to have the experience in the journalism arena to know about the issues there, but it's about making sure that we are giving a voice to the issues and conditions that people are working in. Um,
Absolutely.
what would be, and this is one of my favorite questions to ask on Career View Mirror, what would, if you could share one or two career tips with the younger you, little Ernest, what would they be?
Oh, wow. I have a lot. But I think the ones that matter the most to me is not every mentor is a great fit. I think we have seen a lot of young people, and I've learned this even as recently as the past 2 years, is that on this quest to find mentors, we don't often take a step back and say, well, is this mentor a good fit for me?
Mm, mm,
We want wisdom from those who have done this work for a long time, but we don't often look at who is the right life coach or mentor or advisor, or sponsor. We don't sometimes do that work to look at if that relationship is productive and healthy. And so I've done a lot of self-reflection on my early parts of my career where, I've really thought, oh, I need to have a mentor. People always say, you got to get a mentor, you got to get a mentor. And I had so many interesting experiences with that because, some people just, they were good for someone, but they just weren't necessarily good for me.
right.
I think some of the advice that I got from certain mentors, were from a place of concern and caution, but not from a liberation space.
Mm,
And I think that it's important for any mentor, and I try to mentor people with the best of my abilities, is to bring out the best of a person while also making them reach the goals that they want to achieve. I
yeah.
think too often mentors project their own goals for a person or what they
Yeah.
see for a person that isn't necessarily in alignment with what that person wants. And so when I look at the earlier parts of my career, I had mentors that really wanted me to go a certain route. It was, you know, they didn't want to trust the fact that I was very adamant about being a professional independent journalist. So they would say, with the talent you have, you should apply for this job. You should apply for this. It's like, well, I don't really want to work for a company.
Right.
And they said, well, you're going to have to do that if you're going to survive. Like, well, if it isn't your goal, wouldn't it be your goal to try to, support or find ways to adapt? But what I found out was that this was someone, and these were people who have worked in businesses for 20 years. They didn't have that imagination.
Right.
But then I look at mentors in my life. One woman who I really just have the utmost respect for, her name is Bené Wilson,
Mhm.
and she goes by the Aviation Queen, and she has covered aviation for over 20 years, and she now works at the Point Guy, and she's incredible. She has been doing freelance longer than I think I've been alive.
Oh my goodness, it's a long time.
And she's a Black woman who has done so much work in advocacy, journalism. And so she has given me so much advice and support and encouragement in my entrepreneurship journey and what it takes to do this work and thrive and be successful in this work. And so I realized that that was the fit for me, with
Yes.
someone who embraced my interest in being independent and supported that and gave me pointers on things like negotiating contracts with companies, how to engage and be very clear on what type of work I want to do, so that I don't get, lost in the sauce once I do get a contract.
Right.
There was a lot of great advice that was pertinent to me. And so I think a lot of young people, I would just say, really look at the mentors you want. Don't just chase the success. There's a lot of mentors that you might see that has the longevity, the seniority, the awards, all of the things that you think are admirable. But that doesn't mean that mentor is the best for you. I've sought mentorships from people who've won multiple Emmy Awards, who have, ran TV stations and things of that nature. But what their goals were and their ideas were not necessarily pertinent to what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
So that was important. And the second thing I would really advise young people to do, or any of those individuals that's looking in professional careers, regardless of whether it's journalism or media, is to really embrace where you are at the point of your career. Embrace the growth, expect the growth, and acknowledge it. I think I'm seeing a pattern on social media where everyone wants to be instant night successes. People really want to you know be there already.
Right.
And I love the fact that I can look at my growth and that I was okay with where I was. Not going to the University of Pennsylvania, you get a class, you get a master class and class, right? You got people who are born into money, that have money. I went to school with Denzel Washington's son. His son Malcolm went to Penn at the same time I went to Penn. And so you're seeing celebrities, kids all around campus. My fiance, who I also met at Penn, went to school at the same time that Donald Trump's younger daughter went. Joe Biden's granddaughter went. We were all in school at the same time where these people were roaming the campus. So we saw a lot of money and a lot of power. And so in some ways that was at times, intimidating. But then it was also sobering because I recognized that where I was at was okay.
Yep.
That the things that I needed to succeed was okay because it was my journey. And I didn't have to explain my journey to other people because some of these people's journeys were paved out for them without their input.
Yep.
And so one of the things that was really real to me is that, there were people around me. Like when I first graduated, I lived in a studio apartment that was $450 a month in West Philly. Okay. I was not where I'm at today. I'll say that. No LLC, no thousands of followers. I had one publication I was writing for at that time that was paying me, which was Metro Philly, the free paper. Okay, the paper that people would toss out on a SEPTA or whatnot. This was not glamorous work, and it was. But you know what? I was grateful to have it. I was grateful to do it. I had worked at a startup place that ripped me off $1,500. Never got to see that money. And I was in a situation where I, for 5 seconds, worked corporate at Comcast for like literally less than a month before I ended up leaving and then, pursuing journalism again, but doing it at the very bare minimum. Free local paper. I was getting paid $100 an article, which wasn't too bad, but I had to hustle for each piece. I wasn't getting the set contracts. I had to file an invoice for each piece. And so I would accumulate a couple of these hundreds a month to pay my rent and keep myself afloat. but it was a very like bare bones thing because I needed to get that kind of just consistent work and learning how to report on the very grassroots level. I mean, writing 500-word blurbs that would go in the paper, but that was what built my visibility. That's what built my chops on the post grad level. I had to humble myself, right? I'm graduating from Penn where everyone around me is getting Wall Street jobs and getting job offers. And I knew that wasn't for me, but everyone's moving into nice condos in New York and nice apartments. And they're looking at me like, everybody's supposed to be successful. Come right, you got to come out the gate. People getting houses, people living. And I was very adamant on, hey, this is working for me. I'm okay. I'm content with this. This is okay. The fact that I'm able to pay my own bills for the first time in my life, the fact that, I'm writing and I'm getting published somewhere and I'm getting paid for it. This was something that worked for me. Others around me had their own judgments. They were just like, I don't get it. Why won't he just run and work somewhere that's gonna, he could do this. But I had a vision, I had goals, and I had a quick movement. And so right after that, within a year, I get at Philadelphia Magazine. Stock goes up. And then quickly after that, I go viral, get a big national contract with BET, start writing for them. Then other publications begin to follow. And now I'm in a place now where I'm like at any given day
And
consistently
that is
writing,
knocking at your door, like, hey, can you
knocking on my door. People email me and say, hey, could you write about this? Or I'm got contracts with like I got I think around 2 to 3 national publication contracts that are on a regular basis. And I have this big local one with Philadelphia Magazine. And then I'm doing tons of speaking engagements on a regular now. My business and my services that I do under Ernest Me Empire, which is a media production, consulting, and communications company, all of those things are picking up. I'm working. Like
Yeah.
I'm working. But it really just took me being in a place where I didn't compare my journey to someone else's journey, that it had to make sense for me. And so I really want to tell our young people in the professional settings is to really, embrace where you are in your life. If I'm someone who just graduated from college, I don't need a mortgage right now.
No.
I don't need to have a crazy apartment with mad furniture. Like when I think about the way that my mother lived growing up and how we lived, the type of money I'm making and things I'm making supersedes where my mom was and parents were when they was raising me when I was younger at this age. Like the opportunity and my mom makes, she's doing well now, but when I think about when I was little, how we lived. And so in my mind, I'm on the standard of, well, not bad to have this 1 bedroom apartment. Not bad to be able to, live in an area that's next to a grocery store, next to public transportation that's not in a food desert. Not bad to be able to, have an elevator in my apartment and have a laundromat. Not bad. And so I compare it to those aspects of my life and my needs and say to myself, as long as it keeps getting better each year, like I don't live in that 450 studio apartment anymore, I definitely moved on up. But I'm looking at that growth
Yeah.
and not rushing the process or forcing things that don't need to happen. And that has kept me humbled and that has really kept me confident in the things that I need because a lot of people are going broke fast,
Yes.
trying to catch up to those Joneses, trying to live those lifestyles. Like I don't go out abroad and I have friends and people that love to go out and always go to Cancun for the summer and stuff.
Right.
I'm a staycation person. I will do a great BYOB, go to a great hotel in Philadelphia and stay in. But I don't feel like just doing things just cause.
Yes.
It doesn't make sense. Why would I drop $3,000 to go to France? Not pre-pandemic. Why would I just drop money to go to Puerto Rico just cause? I mean, if that's how some people want to relax, they can. But I love my monthly massage subscription. I pay $60 a month to get a massage and stuff every month, and that is my vacation, and I'm okay with that. And so I just think people should just learn to do the things that make them feel good and make sense for them. You know, some people might need all of the vacations. They need to travel all the time. They
Nice.
need to party out. Maybe they need it. But I had to look at where I was, my budget, and where I'm at. And
Mhm.
it's okay. And I think that that's important. You know, right now, I'm getting married. And so
Congratulations.
my wedding's gonna be in the fall. And so my fiance and I, like, we're both like, look, the pandemic is a terrible thing and it's a nightmare. But for us, we're like, with all the money we would have spent trying to travel here or go here or do what X, Y, Z, that money's going to the wedding fund. And we've made some significant, you know, deposits and improvements based on just focus on the stuff we care about. We really, really want a nice wedding.
Absolutely.
Honeymoon. I mean, we'll do a staycation.
Aw,
I mean, I might do something nice at a, you know, do a nice hotel situation. But I'm not crazy about just doing these things based on these traditions because, as you can see, my entire life has been unconventional and untraditional.
and
So,
unapologetically authentic. I love
yeah.
it. And I became a fan from reading one of your pieces.
Oh,
And
which one?
I appreciate it. Oh, it was the one on the Karens, the very first Karen article.
Oh,
The
yes,
Gruner brothers. But yes,
yes.
thank you so much for being on this show. We're running out of
Thank you.
time, and my thing is cutting out. But I appreciate you being on the show. And if you like what you saw, everyone, like the episode, subscribe, and thank you, Ernest Owens, for gracing us with your presence.
Thank you.